Hi, I'm Julia Jacobson, CEO and co-founder of Aster Farms. We are a sustainable cannabis company grown right here in California, and we are going to give you a little tour of our farm today. So you are here with us in Lake County, which is just east of Mendocino and north of Napa. And let's take you around the farm. So at Aster Farms, we grow outdoors in ground in live soil, and that's pretty unique in cannabis, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. We're also going to talk about regenerative agriculture and being a vertically integrated brand. First, we're going to take you to our propagation house. So at Aster Farms, we typically grow the majority of our product from seed. And so that means popping seeds, which we do in approximately March, and growing those seeds into large enough plants that they can start to go into the ground by May or June. So this is our propagation greenhouse. It's totally empty and looks pretty ugly right now, so I'm just gonna block your view. But this is where the seeds are popped and where they grow until they are ready to go in ground. And this is what we call a volunteer. This was a seed that fell into the ground and decided to grow, and the CDFA has allowed us to keep it. Really quickly, right over here, this is our light deprivation greenhouse that's going up right now, as you can see. This is a greenhouse that's completely automated with both lights and blackout shades. And what it does is allow you to trick the plant into thinking that it's time to flower. So you're able to get 3, possibly even 4 turns of a harvest in a single year and grow in times of the season, like in the winter or really early spring, when you couldn't otherwise grow cannabis. So we're going to talk about how we grow in ground now. It's super important for us at Aster Farms to create a living ecosystem. What we say is we're not feeding the plants, we're feeding the soil because the soil is feeding the plants. And so part of that is beneficial insects. Over here, we have our terpene garden. This is a non-cannabis herb garden that attracts pollinators and other beneficial insects that help create an ecosystem here that's really healthy for the plants to grow in. So we're going to take you down to a couple plants right now. This is our lower garden. The soil here has been worked on for about 9 years now. So it's really optimized, and this is where we have been growing since Aster Farms first started. So in terms of growing in ground in live soil, you can see here that the plants are literally in ground. And so what we're doing here is focusing on creating this ecosystem of microorganisms, fungi, worms, other insects that are making the soil as healthy as possible. They're aerating the soil, they're keeping nutrients in it, and that creates the healthiest environment for cannabis plants to grow. What you also see down here is mulch. We use straw as our mulch. And there are a couple reasons for mulching your plants. One is the irrigation system. So we have irrigation lines down here, and it gets to about 105 degrees often in Lake County. And those irrigation lines can get really hot, which makes the water really hot. And hot water is not good for plants. So covering all the irrigation lines with straw helps keep the water cool inside and the plants happy. Additionally, at Aster Farms, we try to do the most sustainable practices with our agriculture as possible. And part of that is efficient water use. By using straw or mulch, you're helping the soil absorb as much of that water as possible and not allowing a lot of evaporation. So that makes it really much more efficient water use in our cultivation operation. We're going to show you now a little bit about harvesting. So these plants go in the ground in early June. And as you can see, we are now in the flowering stage. So right around August and September, plants start flowering. An interesting fact about cannabis plants is that they are annuals. What an annual plant is a plant that only lives for one season. So as the plants start flowering, they're also beginning to go into their last phase and eventually die. So with cannabis plants, we're actually chopping them down at the root ball at the end of the season and planting completely new plants next year. So what you're seeing here are the buds ready to flower. And we do a technique of harvesting where we do manicures. And this is getting nerdy with track and trace, is what you call it as a manicure. And so by manicuring, we're starting with the most developed buds. And the way that you know that a bud is developed is by both squeezing the bud and looking at the pistils. You're looking for the pistils to be turning an amber color and for the density of the bud to be a little bit strong when you squeeze it. So you're looking for it to start to get kind of thick and dense. So what we do is we start with the colas. These are the colas, which are the top buds. It's a grouping of buds that's typically the largest. They're getting the most sun and strength from the plant. So we start by first manicuring off the colas and any mature buds that are on the exterior of the plant. After we do our first manicure, and we're gonna show you a plant right now. After we do our first manicure, we let the plant grow for another 2 weeks or so. And then we come back in. Is this the aisle? Yes. One more?
No,
yes.
go.
Okay. After we do our first manicure, we let the plant grow for another 2 weeks. And what's happening there is we're allowing it to turn those smaller buds into big A buds. So this is an example of a plant that has been manicured. So here you can see that the colas, which come out of these main stalks, have been cut off, and some of the mature buds that were on the supporting side stalks have been cut off. What you're seeing here is that these are some of the smaller buds, and they've now had the chance to have all the energy of the plant and all of the nutrients we're getting it, and they're able to grow bigger and hopefully into more A buds. We're going to talk about trellis now really quickly. So what you're seeing here is called trellis, and unfortunately this is one of the least sustainable aspects of our operation, and we are trying to figure that out right now. The reason for trellising is supporting the buds. As you can see here, as these buds continue to get bigger, they're actually creating weight pulling down on the branch. And if you have too much weight on the branch, it can actually snap off and you'll lose, those buds will die. So we use trellis both horizontally and vertically around the sides to support the branches at their various stages. One thing that you're going to notice if you're looking at our plants here is a lot of variation, and that's because we grow by seed. We believe that growing from seed really gives the best vigor to the plant. Those first seeds, that first mother, has the most vigor. They're expressing the genetics in the most intense way possible, and that's what we want to see in our product. We use all organic inputs, and we think of cannabis kind of like heirloom tomatoes. They're all going to look different. Some of them are going to look a little bit weird, but they taste better than anything else on the market. So we really embrace the variation that we see in our plants and the beautiful phenomes that we see expressed amongst them. We do clone here, so we just do one cloning of our best phenomes, so we are able to go in and choose those plants with the purple and blue pistils and continue to get more of them each year. So now we're going to talk about composting. Oh, there's some purple. And there's a bee, which we love. So we're going to talk about some of the regenerative agriculture practices that we do. So we are using a combination of compost, both compost that we create ourselves and compost that we're sourcing locally that we bring in. We also use all organic inputs, typically a fish tea that is given as nutrients to our plants through our liquid drip lines. This is our compost back here. It's made of a combination of actual cannabis waste, so the stalks and stems and additional fan leaves from last season and from this season. It's also mixed in there are clippings from our non-cannabis terpene garden, grass clippings, etc. So that creates a really organic compost for us right at our own hands, and it's a closed loop way for us to operate our farm. So again, here you're going to see some variation. What you're seeing here, though, are all full-term plants. And full-term plants are what you know as sativa and indica, and all of the crosses that have been made between the two, the hybrids. What we also have here at Aster Farms is ruderalis, and we're going to take you over there in a second. But we're first going to show you a plant in a pot. So Before we told you how it's very unique that we actually grow in ground in live soil. A lot of outdoor cannabis growers, especially in California, use what are called smart pots. This is an example of a smart pot. We ran out of space and had too many plants, so we had to use a couple smart pots. And there are benefits to the smart pots in that you are able to control the environment. You're not actually excavating and tilling into your soil, although we don't till. But there are some drawbacks. So our root systems have an endless place to go. Whereas even though this is a large pot, the roots in these plants are constricted to that space and that space alone. So we try to grow as much possible in ground. Now we're going to take you to some ruderalis. And in the meantime, I'm going to talk about our cover crop. So part of our regenerative practices and sustainability is cover crop. So as these plants are annuals, we cut them down. And when we're finished, we plant different kinds of vegetables in what's called cover crop that help bring nutrients back into the soil and also help aerate. So first, some ruderalis. So these are ruderalis. Ruderalis was found or created or whatever in Siberia. And the reason for the genetics being this way is that the environment was really harsh and the light cycle is really short. So in Siberia, you don't have a light cycle capable of growing a full-term plant. So autoflowers, or day neutral, which the scientific name is called ruderalis, they start flowering automatically. They're not photosensitive. So the moment you put them in the ground, they are both growing and vegging and also flowering at the same time. So as you can see, these plants are very small. You have to grow a sea of green in order to get the same yield, but their entire cycle can be as short as about 80 days. Therefore, you're able to get 3, maybe even 4 flips in a year, but you're still getting the benefits of in-ground outdoor growing as opposed to flipping in a greenhouse. We're gonna stop here really quickly. So this is some of our cover crop. So like I said, at the end of the season, when we cut down our plants, we plant cover crop. So we typically plant mustard greens, peppers, peas, daikon, and wildflowers. And the reason for that is their roots are really strong and dig deep. So they are literally aerating the soil for us, so we don't have to do it. They're also trapping more carbon into the soil, and they're bringing nitrogen and other nutrients that we've depleted back in there. Here's a quick example. Oh, I pulled it off and cut it, but that's some daikon. So we mentioned that we're a vertically integrated brand, and we're going to talk about that for a second now. So that's also super unique in cannabis in California. Most brands are sourcing flower from cultivators who just grow cannabis. They're just cultivators, and they sell to companies that are just brands. At Aster Farms, we really believe that it's important that we control our quality and our seeds all the way through the process. So for us, it was a no-brainer. Of course, we have to grow our own. But along with that comes processing, all the hurdles and challenges of actually growing yourself at the same time as managing a brand. So while we continue to think it is a blessing and the right strategic choice in running a cannabis brand in California, it definitely has its challenges. And so this is just a quick little tour of Aster Farms and how we make our cannabis here. Thank you for coming with us, and we hope that you can come join us in Lake County one day. Thank you.